I actually don't see any problem in upping the ratio from the under one to 1 year old by one child. I mean, I've seen. My sister had twins, and she had 4 boys, and they all under that age, and they were all very, very well looked after. I've seen other parents looking after one child, and the one child that's under 1 and 1 sometimes doesn't get the same attention that maybe 3 or 4 do.
And Catherine, don't go. Just to explain to some listeners who are perhaps just joining us, this is reportedly that the Deputy Prime Minister has told Conservatives he'll block reforms to the adult-child ratio limits for childcare. Just to explain, under 1s and 1-year-olds currently is 1 to 3, adult to child. It will go to 1 to 4 if it was to go ahead. 2s is 1 to 4, that would go to 1 to 6, again, if it was to go ahead. Catherine, stay where you are. We'll come back to you. Mr Clegg.
Catherine, I mean, look, I've got young children. They're not at nursery anymore, but they've been through nursery. So I know how much any parent listening to this programme will really, really kind of care that we get this right in terms of improving both the affordability of childcare, which we must do, but also the quality. So what the Department for Education did is they consulted and they said, look, is it possible to have an adult look after more children? So instead of 4 2-year-olds, as Nick Ferrari said, go up to 6 2-year-olds. I think 4 is already quite a handful. Just imagine looking after 6. But, can you do that at the same time as raising quality? Now, a lot of people basically got back in the consultation and said, look, this isn't going to work, particularly for very small children. It isn't necessarily going to be passed on in terms of cost savings to parents. And there are a lot of parent groups who kind of worry that, look at a little 2-year-old toddler suddenly having 6 in a group rather than 4 is quite a challenge for the adult. So we've got to get this right. We're still obviously discussing this in government. But one thing I can assure you, Catherine, indeed anybody else listening, because I think some of the stuff I heard in the media this morning suggested that this was going to jeopardise something which I've been one of the principal authors of, which is a tax-free childcare from 2015. This has absolutely nothing to do with that at all. That is funded completely separately, not least from about £1 billion.
So the £1,200 stays.
£1,200, that stays. It's got nothing to do with it. I think people are sort of slightly mixing things up there. But look, we need to get it right. I am absolutely passionate that we should do more as a country to make sure that childcare is of better quality, but also more affordable. And this is not a great ideological thing. This is just about getting it right for parents up and down the country. And by the way, one final thing, Catherine, when the last government changed the so-called ratios, in other words, allowed an adult to look after more young children, they did it for, I think, 3 and 4-year-olds, the Labour government did, it had almost no effect in reducing the costs for parents whatsoever. So you do need to be led by the evidence, and that's what I will continue to do in the debate.
Catherine, coming back to your point as a mum or an aunt or literally looking after the children.
And a grandmother.
And a grandmother. I'm sorry, madam, and indeed a grandmother. Never mess with a grandmother, I know that. Final point to the Deputy Prime Minister.
My other point is why don't we raise the childcare, giving them sort of more of a status and giving them higher qualifications? Yeah. Because quite honestly, if you can make them seen as worthwhile,
yes.
They are worthwhile. They're hugely important to the country. So
yes.
actually up the qualification there so that actually the child is getting. I'm not knocking what they're getting now, but maybe they should be seen as I don't know, higher in the bracket.
Yeah, Catherine, I totally agree with you on that. And I guess in a nutshell, the debate is all about can you raise quality and quantity at the same time. In other words, is there a link between increasing the number of toddlers that an adult's looking after and raising the qualifications of that adult? Now, the consultation, quite a lot of people said, look, you can't really, there's a trade-off between the two. But look, this is the stuff we're grappling with. We've got to get the balance right. We owe it to parents up and down the country who want more affordable, more high-quality childcare. But I think what you say is giving more esteem and giving more respect in society for people who do work in childcare is something I strongly agree with.
Catherine, thank you for that. Just briefly, Deputy Prime Minister, was Mr Cameron aware of your concerns over this, or has he learnt it by listening to the radio?
No. We've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was as surprised as anybody else to find that that for some reason this appeared in public overnight. So I'm just being an open kind of guy. I'm just telling you,
okay.
This is a debate we've had for a long time.
You could look after 4 under ones, couldn't you?
I think it's not really a question about for me. I think
you're an adult.
I will challenge you to spend a morning looking after 6 2-year-olds. I think any of us would find that quite a
Well, I'll have a go if you ever go.
Oh, right. Well,
we'll do it as a competition.
I'm actually going to visit a childcare centre this afternoon,
I will have a
we'll see how you do.